London has two kinds of silence. One is the ordinary silence that falls after midnight traffic thinning, streetlights pooling on wet pavement, the city exhaling into the Thames. The other is the engineered silence of Buckingham Palace, a silence with centuries behind it. Built to keep the crown steady even when the people wearing it are not. That second silence is what the internet thinks it heard this month. Claims surged across feeds and message threads that King Charles III had suffered a sudden collapse after a private medical consultation. That staff panicked. That something urgent had unfolded behind closed doors. That the palace was unusually quiet, and therefore something must be wrong. This is how modern crisis narratives begin, not with a verified bulletin, but with a sensation, a whisper dressed as a dispatch. A story shaped to feel inevitable, but investigative work starts the same way every time, not by repeating the loudest claim, but by asking a simple question that cuts through fog like a blade. Asterisk, asterisk, what can we actually confirm? Asterisk, asterisk, here is what the verified public record shows in December 2025. On December 12, 2025, King Charles released a recorded message for Channel 4's Stand Up to Cancer campaign, saying clearly that thanks to early diagnosis, effective intervention, and adherence to doctors' orders, his schedule of cancer treatment would be reduced in the new year. Buckingham Palace described this shift as moving into a asterisk asterisk precautionary phase. Asterisk asterisk with ongoing monitoring. That statement matters because it's not rumor. It is an official communication from the monarch and the palace. It is also consistent across multiple reputable outlets, UK broadcasters and international media reporting the same message and the same palace framing. It also fits the broader medical timeline we already know. In February 2024, the palace announced Charles had been diagnosed with cancer discovered during treatment for benign prostate enlargement, and he began regular treatments while postponing public-facing duties, and when there has been a genuine schedule disruption due to treatment effects, it has been publicly acknowledged in careful language. In March 2025, Buckingham Palace said the king required a short hospital observation period after experiencing temporary treatment side effects, postponing engagements and rescheduling the next day's diary. Now, here is the key friction point with the viral collapse story reputable reporting around. December 10, 2025 does not align with the notion of a hidden incapacitating incident. For example, U.S. network coverage noted the king attending an Advent service on December 10th, and on December 25, 2025, multiple mainstream outlets described Charles leading the royal family's Christmas Day walk to church at Sandringham, another very public. Observed appearance explicitly framed as occurring amid the recent positive health update that his treatment would be scaled back in 2026. So, if you're asking, did King Charles collapse in secret on December 10, 2025? The responsible answer is asterisk asterisk. There is no verified reporting or official statement that confirms that specific incident asterisk asterisk, and the most visible, independently reported appearances around that period push in the opposite direction. But that doesn't end the documentary. It begins it, because the real story, what's worth investigating, is not only whether a rumor is true, it's why this particular rumor spreads so easily, and why the monarchy is uniquely vulnerable to medical panic. Narratives in the digital age, the crown is a stability machine. It survives by projecting continuity. That projection has always required an uncomfortable trade, less transparency than an ordinary family would offer. When health enters the picture, that trade becomes volatile. The palace can't publish a medical chart. It can't live stream consultations. It can't respond to every rumor without elevating it. Yet every time it chooses restraint, it creates the very vacuum that modern media systems exploit. This is where a monarchy becomes a target not only for tabloids, but for attention economies that thrive on dread. And dread is predictable. It seeks patterns. It feeds on absences. It converts no comment into confirmation. The mechanism is simple and brutal. 1. A public figure has a known health condition. 2. A gap appears and engagement shifted. A schedule adjusted, a camera angle that shows fatigue. 3. A claim drops into the gap. Collapse, rush doctors. Secret meeting. 4. The palace says nothing because saying something rewards the claim. 5. The silence is recoded online as proof. And suddenly the institution is not managing a health narrative anymore. It is managing an information incursion, a swarm of stories, some sincere, some malicious, most impossible to fully extinguish once airborne. This is why modern palace communications increasingly look like strategic defense. Not because the palace is hiding everything, but because it knows what happens when it loses control of timing. The story becomes a stampede. Asterisk. That's also why official updates like the Stand Up to Cancer message are engineered to be both human and bounded, enough truth to steady the public, not enough detail to feed speculation, and phrased to avoid making promises medicine can't guarantee. And in that narrow corridor between compassion and caution, rumor hunts. So tonight's documentary isn't about inventing a collapse that isn't verified. It's about something more revealing. How? In 2025, public health information has become political terrain. And how easily a leader's medical reality can be turned into a weapon against institutional trust. Because once people are trained to believe that the truth will only leak, they stop listening when the truth is actually spoken, and that is the most dangerous outcome for any country. Not that leaders get sick, but that citizens lose the ability to distinguish verified reality from viral fiction. When people say the palace is silent, they imagine a vacuum and empty space where nothing is happening. In reality, palace silence is rarely absence. It's discipline. It's a doctrine. It's the oldest crisis management system in Europe, refined through centuries of coups, wars, abdications, scandals, and the one threat that never negotiates, the human body. And when a health rumor starts moving, especially a rumor about the monarch, it doesn't hit Britain like celebrity gossip. It hits like a readiness test. Because the crown isn't only a family, it's constitutional continuity. In that sense, every health rumor is also an information operation. Whether the person spreading it intends that or not. Start with what we can verify, because verified record is the hard ground beneath the fog. On Wednesday, December 10th, 2025 King Charles attended a service at Westminster Abbey to celebrate Christian witness in Advent, with the Abbey itself publishing the event details and noting the King's participation and message. 2 days later, on December 12, 2025, the King released a message for Channel 4's Stand Up to Cancer, stating that thanks to early diagnosis and effective intervention, his schedule of cancer treatment could be reduced in the new year. Buckingham Palace described his care shifting into a precautionary phase. Continuously monitored and reviewed. That phrase, precautionary phase, is doing heavy lifting. It's not all clear and it's not emergency. It's a controlled middle, strong enough to reassure, cautious enough to remain medically honest, and carefully framed to avoid baiting the public into demanding details the palace won't provide. Now here's the crucial point. The palace didn't invent this playbook in December 2025. It built it in 2024 and tested it in 2025. February 6, 2024. Buckingham Palace confirmed that a separate issue of concern was noted during the King's hospital procedure for benign prostate enlargement, and subsequent tests identified a form of cancer. The statement said he began regular treatments, would postpone public-facing duties but continue state business and paperwork. The palace also said the King chose to share the diagnosis to prevent speculation, and in March 2025, when the King experienced temporary side effects from treatment requiring a short hospital observation period, the palace issued a statement and postponed engagements as a precaution. He returned to Clarence House the same day. These are not just health updates. They are information tactics. Disclose enough to keep credibility intact. Disclose in a controlled window and deny rumor ecosystems the oxygen of uncertainty. So, Why do collapse rumors still spread? Because the modern media environment doesn't reward accuracy. It rewards certainty. And certainty can be manufactured. Faster than truth can be confirmed. Here is how the secret collapse narrative usually gets assembled like a field expedient, weapon built from spare parts. First, it takes a real vulnerability, the fact that the king is undergoing cancer treatment, which the palace publicly confirmed in early 2024. Second, it uses a plausible setting, a private consultation, a closed corridor, a medical meeting. These are believable because, of course, such meetings exist. The palace is a workplace. It has medical support. It has private rooms. It has staff trained for contingencies. Third, it adds an emotional payload, staff scrambling, no details released, unusual silence. It doesn't need a medical diagnosis. It needs a mood. And mood is the currency of viral news. Finally, it leverages the palace's natural reflex. Don't dignify unverified claims with responses. That silence, which is intended to protect privacy and prevent escalation, gets spun as proof. This is not a uniquely royal problem. It's what happens when a high-value institution meets an algorithmic ecosystem. The institution communicates slowly and carefully. The internet communicates instantly and violently, but the monarchy has a unique vulnerability. Its legal continuity mechanisms are real, and people sense that. Britain is not improvising if a monarch becomes temporarily unwell. The framework already exists. Under the Regency Act, 1937, royal functions can be delegated to councillors of state in cases of illness, not rising to full incapacity or absence from the UK. To prevent delay in public business, that is not tabloid fantasy. That is statute. Which means any rumor about a monarch's health automatically triggers a second question in the public mind. Asterisk, are we about to see power delegated? Are we about to see a regency scenario? Is the state prepared? Asterisk, this is where the palace's silence becomes strategically understandable, even if it feels emotionally frustrating. If every rumor forced an official response, the palace would be permanently reactive, permanently validating the most aggressive narrative of the day. In security terms, that would mean surrendering the initiative, and yet there is also a danger on the other side. If the palace communicates too sparingly, it creates space for the public to believe that official messages are not meant to inform, but to manage perception. That's why the palace has leaned, at least in verified moments, toward controlled transparency. We saw it in February 2024, we saw it in March 2025, and we saw it again in December 2025 with the Stand Up to Cancer message and precautionary phase language. Now, the most important investigative detail in all of this is not what the palace says, it's what the palace does next. Because in modern information warfare, actions are harder to fake than statements. If the monarch is repeatedly visible at public events, that doesn't prove perfect health, but it does impose reality on speculation. And in late December 2025, mainstream reporting described the king leading the royal family's Christmas Day walk to church at Sandringham, explicitly linking the appearance to the recent health update about reducing treatment in 22.6. So when a dramatic claim insists on a hidden December collapse, the investigator's position is disciplined and simple. The claim is not verified, and it conflicts with multiple visible, documentable appearances and official messaging from the period. But here's the hard truth that makes this documentary worth watching. Even false health rumors can still be strategically effective because their real target is not the king's body. It's public trust. If enough people believe the palace lies by default, then even truthful announcements later will be treated as manipulation. That is how institutional credibility dies, not from one scandal, but from chronic doubt. And in a constitutional monarchy, credibility isn't decoration. It is a stabilizer. When it weakens, everything else becomes louder. Political division, media frenzy, conspiracy ecosystems, and foreign actors who know that destabilizing symbols is cheaper than destabilizing armies. Modern monarchy doesn't have to fall to be damaged. It only has to be doubted, and that is why a single unverified medical emergency, Rumor one whispered into the bloodstream of social media can produce consequences that look, from a distance, like a national tremor. Not because the claim is proven, but because the claim forces millions of people to imagine the worst, all at once. Here is how the shockwave travels. First, it hits the public mood. The country is already trained by recent history to listen for health signals from the crown. When a rumor says, collapse, people don't hear a tabloid headline, they hear instability. They begin reading every silence as concealment, every routine schedule change as code. The palace can insist on normality, but the audience has already been conditioned to distrust the surface. Second, it hits the press ecosystem. Newsrooms are forced into a trap. Ignore the rumor and look asleep at the wheel, or cover it and risk amplifying misinformation. Even careful outlets end up reporting claims are circulating, which is a softer form of spread. The rumor becomes a thing, and once it becomes a thing, it gains gravity. Third, it hits security posture. Crowds gather. Cameras camp. Online harassment spikes. Staff become targets. In the age of permanent surveillance, the perimeter hardens not only to protect the royal family, but to protect the institution from a single leaked image that could be misread as confirmation. The palace becomes less visible, which feeds the rumor again. A perfect loop. Fourth, it hits diplomacy and adversaries. Allies don't panic publicly, but they monitor. Adversaries don't need to fabricate a new crisis. They only need to amplify doubt. If they can make Britons believe the palace is permanently deceptive, they weaken a national symbol that functions as continuity during political storms. A rumor becomes a tool of erosion. This is what information warfare looks like in peacetime. No missiles. No troops, just trust being slowly bled out, until every official message is treated like propaganda, and then comes the most dangerous consequence. Future truth becomes harder to deliver. If the palace ever needs to announce a real emergency, the public's first reaction may not be grief or solidarity. It may be suspicion. Why should we believe them now? That is the end game of rumor, not the lie itself, but the destruction of belief. So the real question isn't whether a collapse rumor is dramatic. The question is whether the palace can interrupt the loop without feeding it using visible continuity, disciplined messaging, and credible boundaries, because once silence stops being a shield and becomes an invitation to chaos, the institution must choose, speak with precision, or be spoken for. In the digital era, a monarchy can't defeat every rumor, but it can defeat the conditions that make rumors lethal: long silence, inconsistent messaging, and vanishing visibility. The palace's task is not to publish medical files. It is to maintain credibility while defending privacy. That balance requires a new doctrine, one built for algorithms, not newspapers. First, predictable transparency. Not constant updates, not emotional press conferences, just a clear, repeatable cadence. When the king's health changes in a meaningful way, the palace must say so early in plain language, the way it did in February 2024 and again with the precautionary phase. Framing in December 2025, the goal isn't detail. It's trust. Second, visible continuity. Rumors thrive on absence. So the institution has to show proof of life through ordinary duty, brief public engagements, controlled images, and consistent scheduling that prevents the vacuum from forming. Visibility isn't performance, it's stabilizing evidence. Third, one voice, one channel. In a crisis, mixed signals are fatal. The palace must centralize official updates, timestamp them, and avoid off-the-record whispers that look like leaking. If misinformation is circulating, the response should be minimalist. Confirm what's true, deny what's false, and refuse the rest. Finally, protect the human core. The crown survives through continuity, but it is carried by people. The institution must shield family members and staff from harassment and avoid turning private suffering into public theater. Compassion isn't weakness. It is legitimacy. Because in the end, this is what stability means now. Not perfect silence, but believable order. Not secrecy, but controlled truth. Not reacting to every rumor, but starving rumors with credible light. And if the palace gets that right, it doesn't just protect the monarch. It protects the country's ability to believe in shared reality, something far more fragile than any crown.